Hello, I'm Asya. Today we're doing first impression on a new house. It is called Noble Royale. Interesting name there, but they're running with it from the design of their bottles to the way they're describing their scents. It is actually in alignment with the brand name. Now, this house was founded in 2017 in Dubai, I believe, and the owner is called Olga Yurchenko. They released their first 5 fragrances in 2018, and the perfumer behind those 5 fragrances is called Philippe Paparella. I'm not familiar with him, but I looked at his profile and it seemed interesting path that he has so far. Now, he studied perfumery in ISIPCA in Europe, then went on to work for Symrise, which is one of the biggest flavoring and fragrance companies in the world. And then he did work on a perfume called Wolfsbane from Parfums Cortana. So if you tried that one, you might be familiar with his style. I've not tried it. I've only been exposed to his work through the recent first impressions that I did on a new house called Oman Luxury, where he worked on some of their fragrances. Now, from his path, he also lived in Asia, so he has a different exposure to a different culture there. And then from his profile, he also likes working with amber, woody notes, musky notes, and also exotic fruits. So interesting path or resume there. So I'm excited to see what he's done with the new house here. On Jovoy, it retails for 224 euros. Tax inclusive. So and then that's for all 5 fragrances there, so it's a blanket pricing there. So a little bit high in pricing, but I'm curious to see what their fragrances look like or smell like and if it's worth the price point. Now, out of the 5 fragrances, I only picked up 3 samples from the line that were interesting to me. So we're going to be looking at Tobacco Dynasty, Majestueux Vetiver, and then Cuir Magnifique. So let's start with Tobacco Dynasty. This is how the samples are alike. This is their logo, and then inside you have an idea of what the bottle will look like, and then you have the notes on the side there. This is an EDP, so let's get started with this one. I'm really excited to see what it comes off like. Hopefully it doesn't resemble a lot of the other sweet vanilla tobacco accords that are out there. So let's give it a try. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so right off the bat, I get a vanilla accord, but it's not your typical overly sweet vanilla. It smells like natural vanilla. And then I get tonka bean. So slightly nutty, sweet, mixing with the vanilla here is really beautiful. I don't get the tobacco yet. Okay, so now the tobacco is creeping in slowly. So you get the beautiful, natural smelling vanilla that is not overly sweet, but you also get the nutty tonka bean as well, slight coumarin feel to it. But you also get this nutty almondy feel that is coming from heliotrope, I believe. And then a dusty, slightly powdery tobacco accord that is coming in. It's really beautiful. Yeah, it is not overly sweet. It reminds me of Tobacco Vanille, but not as dark, not as overly sweet like Tobacco Vanille by Tom Ford. Yeah, this is beautiful so far. So let's wait for the dry down. At the end of the day, and we're doing a follow-up on Tobacco Dynasty. So at the opening, I told you guys that I got a nutty tonka bean accord along with the natural smelling vanilla and then a powdery almondy nutty heliotrope accord. And then the tobacco, dusty tobacco accord was creeping up slowly. Now in the dry down though, in addition of the tobacco, sweet vanilla, and the tonka, there's a star anise note that started showing up, and at that point in the early stages, it was really nice and it was complementing the heliotrope accord. Now as time went on though, the star anise started to amp up, and at that point it was kind of strong and then kind of pushing the tobacco accord to the side, and it was being the main focus. At that point I didn't like it much. So if you're somebody that doesn't like star anise, that stage you might not enjoy it much, but then further down the line the star anise finally tones down and gives chance to the tobacco to shine a little bit more. And that's pretty much what I got out of the fragrance. It did remind me of Tobacco Vanilla. I ended up spraying it here and then trying to compare it, just a brief comparison there. They are in the same ballpark. Now the difference between the two is that Tobacco Vanilla is darker and has more of a sweet tobacco accord, and then in Tobacco Dynasty the tobacco note is dusty and it is not as prominent or sweet as what you get in Tobacco Vanille. The other differentiator is that you also get the powdery almondy-like effect that I described in Tobacco Dynasty. I don't get that much in Tobacco Vanille. There's a powdery vanilla accord in Tobacco Vanille, different type of powderiness when you compare it to Tobacco Dynasty, where it's more of the heliotrope that is giving that almondy aspect to it. So they're in the same ballpark. I'm gonna wear them side by side, do a full wearing of Tobacco Dynasty, and then see what is all about, and then compare with Tobacco Vanille and see if they're as close as I find them right now. But so far, I think they're pretty close. It's not something that I'll go for since I already have a bottle of Tobacco Vanille, but I think it is well blended. So for people that are looking into the genre, you might as well throw this one in with Tobacco Vanille and Tobacco Rouge by Phaidon, and then decide which one you like the most. So far, Tobacco Vanille by Tom Ford is my favorite, so I'm gonna stick to that. Next, we're looking at Cuir Magnifique, so let's see what I get out of that one. Okay, right away I'm getting citruses, bergamot, and I get florals. There's a specific floral that I love in a Rassasié Knowledge that gives a watery, white floral feel to fragrances. I think is a note of freesia, and I do get that here. There's this slightly green, watery, white floral accord that I'm getting along with the citruses. There's a freshness, like black pepper freshness attached to it. Now, as for leather, I'm not quite getting that yet. It is called Cuir, so I'm expecting that, of course. The opening is underwhelming here. I don't get the leather yet, but it's kind of a fresh black pepper, and then a green, watery, white floral attached to it. So freesia, a little bit of jasmine with bergamot on top of it, and a woody backbone, but I don't get anything else so far. Now, in the dry down of Cuir Magnifique, on top of the opening where I get the black pepper, spicy nutmeg, woody feel, and then the watery white floral cores, I also get the addition of a cooling green and then an orris accord to it, and it's coming from the violet leaf paired with the orris. At that point, that's where the leather starts to show up, but it's not going to be a raw animalic leather. It's going to be more of a refined, new supple leather smell. So it's going to be something that is more on the elegant side, refined and polished version of a leather smell. Now, this one in the dry down, I picked up a little bit of vetiver and a little bit of amber, but it remained linear. So if I have to recap what I get out of this one, is a spicy, slightly white floral in the background, slightly green leather that is led with violet, and a soft, supple, refined or polished leather. That's pretty much what I got out of it. Now, this one did remind me of another offering from the House of Parfum de Marly called Coup Huyon. That one is centered around violet leaf and then also leather, so they share similarities there, but then you can have that one online for about $130 if you look well online, while this one retails for 224 euros. Now, those two, so the Cuir Magnifique and then Parfum de Marly Coup Huyon, did remind me of a shadow version of Fahrenheit, leading with the violet and then the soft leather accord. So I'm going to say, if you put them all in the same bin, I don't see myself shelling 224 euros to get this one. I can get something similar with the Parfum de Marly version, or I can get a stronger structure with the Fahrenheit version of it. So I don't see myself spending money on this one. Now, this one, I must admit though that the blending is really well done. Overall, it is a soft fragrance, but like I said, is really well polished. So it might appeal to people that are wealthy, not frag heads, and are looking for something that will make them smell good, and then they don't care about the price that is attached to it. But overall, I think the perfumer did a good job on this one. It's just that for a frag head, given the options, I don't think 224 euros will be spent on this one. Next, we're looking at Majestueux Vetiver. I'm not a big Vetiver fan, but after looking at the notes here while I was picking the samples, I was curious to see if this one will work for me. So let's see. Oh, wow, this one is an interesting one. So it's fresh at the opening and slightly spicy. Okay, so I get like a spicy green accord, fresh peppery. So I'll guess black pepper and then a little bit of cardamom attached to it. There's some woodiness attached to it as well. But mostly is that cardamom green spicy accord with the fresh peppery accord that is coming maybe from the black pepper. There's a green nuance attached to it as well, but not quite vetiver-like yet, so I'm not getting the vetiver yet. It is well blended and the spices don't come off too strong. And there's an element of freshness attached to it too. So far, the opening is smooth with the spices and then the cardamom and the woody notes. So I'm curious to see if I'm going to get actually a vetiver that I'm going to like in the dry down. So we'll see. Now into the dry down of Majestueux Vetiver on top of the fresh black pepper and then the green spicy cardamom and the woody backdrop that I get in the opening. I also get the addition of something that is cooling, green leafy accord that I couldn't quite place. But after looking at the note breakdown, I figured it was a cypress note that included in note breakdown. So you get an addition of a cypress note that is adding this cooling green effect to it. As it evolved though, I get something that is lightly smoked woody accord. I guess maybe that's what the vetiver that they're referring to, but it came off really well behaved. Nothing earthy, rooty, nothing pungent as well. So you're not gonna get like a really assertive vetiver here. It's gonna be more of a well behaved, lightly, I mean faintly smoked woody accord. As it progresses though, I also get an addition of patchouli and amber that are adding a slightly non-sweetened chocolatey vibe to the woody base or the vetiver that is well behaved here. And it did remind me, that chocolatey vibe did remind me of my favorite vetiver that is a lot more assertive than what I get out of this one. It's called Vetiver Oriental by Serge Lutens, where the chocolatey notes are much more enhanced here. The chocolatey vibe that I get out of Majestueux Vetiver is a lot softer and subtle than what I get out of Vetiver Oriental by Serge Lutens. So overall, you get this spiced, slightly smoked woody vetiver accord that is well behaved, and then an undertone of something that is non-sweetened chocolatey vibe to it because of the patchouli and amber combo in the dry down. That's pretty much what I get out of the fragrance. It has a mature but modern feel to it. There's something elegant about the composition here that makes it signature worthy. Now if we think about price point, 224 euros, and you think about all the classic designer fragrances that do themes around spiced woods and a little bit of vetiver tone attached to it, I think it'll be hard to justify shelling the money for this one, at least for me. And then I think that's because I've sampled so many fragrances. This one does not come off as something that is new or something that I'll shell the money for when I have classics that do spicy, slightly smoked, woody accords really well for less of the price. So overall, I would say well blended again, signature worthy, but depending on what you've sampled so far in your journey, this one might be overpriced for you. That's at least how I feel about this one. So it's not something that I would definitely get in my collection, but I can appreciate the versatility and how subtle and elegant it comes off as. So overall, based on my first impressions, again, these are first impressions. I think the house is good. It's just not geared towards me. I think it's there's a different audience there. For people that are looking for an alternative to Tobacco Vanille because they feel like that one didn't fit the bill for them, check out Tobacco Dynasty. It might be really good for you, but for me, I don't think I'll find anything in the house that is worth adding to my collection. Bear in mind, I've smelled so many fragrances. I have a huge collection at this point, so I'm only adding things that are really not overlapping with what I already have. So keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to come back and then do full reviews on these because I think they're interesting. So I give you more on point reviews and then feel of what each of these fragrances give me. And then you can decide if it's something that you want to get into or not. Again, thank you for watching. If you've tried anything from this house, let me know what you think of them.